I'm here to share a mixed story, and I really hope that you will listen quietly. But at the end of it, you're going to take out something. It's not meant to just say the story, but it's meant for you to take out something from my own experience and for all that we've been through. I will be talking about myself, but I want you to see myself as a lot of other healthcare workers that were at the front line. When I say healthcare workers, I'm not just talking about people that did clinical practice, but everyone that contributed to everything to save the world from Ebola. So the previous speaker said Liberia has been through crisis. As a Liberian, I wasn't born in crisis, but I lived and I grew up in crisis. I went to school during the most difficult time in crisis. I worked as a healthcare worker in crisis. Do you remember that? Crisis. And so for many families in Liberia, the order of the day was moving from one place to another for the 14 years that we went through conflict. There was never a time that the entire country was going through war. So what it meant is that we had a place for rescue. And those were the places that my family found. We kept moving from one location to another, and we ended up in my mom's village. Now I'm going back to this story to connect what I want to say. And when we finally ended in my mom's village, so I don't have the map, but I come from the western part of Liberia, so we're just around the border with Sierra Leone. And we stayed in the village. Think about a city girl going to the village, right? I have to put some water on my head and go for the firewood and learn to cut the rice. I think that was a good thing. It was a good thing because if I had stayed all along in the city, I wouldn't have known my roots. So I hope you are going back to your village. And so we stayed in this village. I'm the second girl of 10 children. You know these old men, right? Yeah. I'm the second girl of 10 children. And during the war, my two brothers were big. They were somewhere else. But my sister and I, my older sister and I, were being held by my dad. He's dead now, but he's a strong man. And so there were many young female that were adopted by the rebels. I said, thank God to my father, because he was always there to protect us. I wouldn't have been here today. And so he did everything he could to ensure that his beautiful daughters did not get adopted by the rebels. So after we stayed in the village, it was difficult. I lost my sister at 6-year-old to severe acute malnutrition. I wish I had the picture. But think about how a malnourished child looks. She was bloated. She had blisters. There was no food. There were days we went hungry. And it's amazing how she died. She died at the point in time when we had woken up this morning and went into the village to find the old cassava. People who've been through it know what I'm talking about. The cassava was like floating on the water. But you had to eat it. That's what you had. The very day that we got the cassava, my mom Tom has a stream. When we arrived at the stream, having walked for hours and digging the old Bugaboo Hill to find some cassava, we realized that there were soldiers, and they said, can we have the food? Now, this was the food we were depending on for that day. When we arrived in the kitchen, we hurriedly went to try and prepare the food. The moment the food got ready, my sister was on my dad's lap, and my sister gave up the ghost. To move from behind the lines, we would say, where the rebels were, to come to Monrovia, where the ECOMO soldiers were, It was like getting a visa to come to the UK. So you had to negotiate with the rebels, right? And they would try and cross you. We went through it. I met a family in this village that I was helping. And they decided when they were coming to Monrovia that they wanted to take me. My dad did not like it, and he wanted me to leave. But he finally accepted. So we came on to Monrovia, and I started to go to school. So I was separated from my family, staying with another family, and going to school. I lost my second sister to cholera. This was the break-even point for me to get involved into health. Cholera, severe acute malnutrition, is something that is still plowing our continent. And there's something that has to be done about that. So I chose a path of health. Did a lot of clinical work, the walking. Remember I said I worked, right? So I was on the front line and I was working. And then my perspective for health began to change. I was made to believe that as a nurse, I was supposed to be by the bedside and serving medication. But I began to understand by working with international organizations who stood in the gap for us during the Liberian civil crisis to provide health care, that health could be provided anywhere. It could be in a makeshift structure. It could be provided anywhere. So having worked in Liberia, I then decided to take on another journey. This time around, I chose to go to the field. Don't you think I was crazy? Coming from Liberia civil crisis, do you know the country I chose to go to? To the Democratic Republic of Congo as a sexual and gender-based violence officer. Interesting. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I took on the task to go. And the biggest motivation was I saw how humanitarian workers help us. This is a picture, not of Congo, but also after Congo, I went to South Sudan. It's me on the floor as a healthcare worker, providing care to someone who was injured. It's not a facility, but you can save a life. The second picture is in Congo preparing for the field on a motorcycle, right? That's interesting. The next one is in the midst of nowhere, South Sudan. There's some South Sudanese here. Actually, I have one of my friends that is from South Sudan. Do you know this place? It's called Lopa Lafon, far from nowhere. This other picture is me in Darfur. You see, I'm turning and look like I'm talking, right? The heli doesn't stop. You have to jump on it like you are fighting war. But at least, probably Charles Taylor taught me something, right? So I was able to jump on the heli. I'm just calling for my colleagues to come. So after all of this and many years of staying in the field, I wanted to have a calm life, and I decided that I would go back home. And why was I going back home? I was going back home to my handsome son, and I wanted to have a calm life and share my family life and blah, blah, blah. And then I moved back home. Ebola. Ebola. And I chose to get pregnant. What does that mean? It means I wasn't following the rules, right? No touch. I was touching. I was touching, so it means if I got pregnant, I was touching, right? This is a story of a child where I used my skills to deliver. I didn't get pregnant. I wasn't touching. I delivered this baby on one of my few visits in the midst of nowhere. Her name is baby Miatta. I was able to save 2 lives. Maternal health. Someone mentioned it today. There are many women that don't have access to health care. This child was taken care of by me all through the Ebola outbreak, and she was my strength. So I served as the deputy incident manager for the Ebola response in Liberia. The chair there is where I sat. That was the hottest chair. This is my colleague who was the incident manager. This is my one day in the ETU where I wanted to show to my colleagues, healthcare worker, that I could not be in the ETU. I was out and I was doing something. We had to coordinate the response. We had to work with our partners. We had to dedicate our all into the Ebola response. It meant nights of not sleeping. And when I said nights of not sleeping, I mean it. We were not getting sleep. But we did all of that, the case management, the contact tracing, you name it, to ensure that Mama Liberia was safe from Ebola. This is the difficult moment. Always in our thoughts, forever in our minds. The Ebola outbreak started with taking all our best. We lost our healthcare workers. And this is across Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, you name it. This for us was a difficult moment. This is at the grave of one of my colleagues who died from Ebola. The people that were supposed to be providing care for the rest of us were the first soldiers that fell prey on the battlefield. It was a difficult moment. When I sit and I look back, I'm saying to myself as a healthcare worker trained in Liberia that I'm no better than my colleagues that lost their lives. Had I been doing the things I was doing, I would be also there providing services. But they did it for a worthy cause, a cause that all of us should appreciate. So, all along during Ebola, I prayed that it should not be my family. And I was hopeful. Days in and days out, coordination is crazy. You are interacting with so many people. Sometimes they bring a paper and they say, who is Miatta? They know my name, my telephone number, but they don't know me in person, but they bring me a paper and say, what is it? I lost my mom last night. But she's a high-risk contact and she's just talking to me. So all was well until October last year. 6 o'clock in the morning, I was about to go to the emergency operations center, and I got a call from my cousin. And what she said to me is that, Miatta, you've lost your aunt. That was a difficult moment. This was something I prayed that would not happen to me, but Ebola took my aunt away. So it's me on November 29 when we had to bury her ashes with my family at the grave. And she's actually buried over my dad because it's my dad's lovely sister. The most difficult part of this experience was that despite all of this, the cry at night, the painful grief we were going through, we did not give up. We cried in the night, and we mounted the response in the day. We did not give up. When you are given a responsibility, we should all realize that that responsibility is never going to be easy. Do it with diligence and put your all into it. That's what we as Liberians did. It means Africa has the potential to do the things they say they will do and do it diligently. The last thing I had to do was to then go as the deputy incident manager to remove the ash of the thousands of Liberians that died. So it's been there with the drum of ashes to be able to take it to somewhere safe that after a few times people can go back and pay respect to their loved ones. Now, all of what I've said stems from the fact that people took the risks to support me. I did not do it on my own. People took the risks to invest in me with the hope that they would have really been able to reap a good seed. I was educated through scholarships. Somebody talk about scholarships today. People gave me what I wanted. I dedicated my time to study. I studied in Asia. When I told everyone I was going to Bangladesh, everybody said, why not the UK? And why not America? And why not Australia? But I want to mention something as you choose what you want to do in the future. It is not about the place that the school is. It's what you choose to make out of it. I chose to make the best out of public health in Bangladesh that you may consider not very important. Bangladesh provided for me an opportunity to learn public health from a realistic perspective. Everything I needed to see in public health, I saw it in Bangladesh. I remember being in class and we were talking about Nipah virus. It's the same thing when we talk about Ebola. So the place doesn't matter. It's what you choose to make out of it. So I'm grateful to the people of Bangladesh. I'm very grateful. They pay 75% of my fees. They gave me a place to stay. I got my books, and I made the best use out of what they had to offer. My parents, I was a child fortunate with many parents. So my biological parents, my dad is dead. My mom is home, and she's enjoying me. I had another set of parents that sent me to high school. They are both deceased. But I have two lovely parents that would have loved to be here today. And I'm saying it because it's good to give people their flowers while they're alive. Dr. Robert Dennis and Nilda Solomon saw me on the walls of JFK as a nurse, never knowing what I would have become in life, and chose to take me as their child and said to me, Miatta, what do you want to do after nursing school? I said, I want to go to school, but I don't have money. So, you know, America, to go to school is very expensive. Do you want to go to any other school in Liberia? I said, yes. They said, the moment that you have made up your mind that you want to go to school, we're going to support you. All we want you to promise, be honest, study hard, and do the best you can. That's what I did. So the key messages that I want to leave with you all, my story is a story of hope. It's a story of perseverance. It's a story of hard work. It's a story of dedication. When I moved back to Liberia and resigned my job in South Sudan, I guess everybody thought I was crazy. But you have heard the other speakers that have said, take the bold step and go back home. I've been home. I fought Ebola. I'm happy with myself. Do things that make you happy with yourself. I know it's a difficult thing when you start to make money and you say, I cannot leave that Jaffe behind. So Jaffe is how you say money in buy. So how do I leave it behind? I left everything. I think it was God's divine intervention with the time I decided to resign. I went back home in 2013, September, and March, Ebola hit. I was able to take the skills that I learned from the field and put my all into the Ebola response. You can do the same. It's not an easy thing moving back home, I must say. But if you are determined to do it, you can make the best you. Our countries need us. Our country needs the best that we can give. Like I said, it's not easy, but try to give the best you can. Two quotes I like to leave that was mentioned by Madiba. Nelson Mandela is so hard to me. He said, education is the cornerstone for the change we want to make in the world. Had I been educated, had I not gotten on a journey to prepare myself for the times, and the times that my son will even face more difficulty, I wouldn't be where I am today. If you are getting education, don't take it light. The second thing he said is, the greatest glory of living is not the number of times you fall, but the number of times that you rise up to those challenges. As I step into the future, I'm stepping into the future knowing that I'm going to be a champion of change in Liberia. I don't know which position, wherever it may be, but I'm optimistic with my experiences that I can make a difference. So as I close up, I kind of ask you to rise up and join me in observing a moment of silence for all the many lives that were lost on the continent to Ebola and other diseases, and commit ourselves to making a change on our continent. Thank you very much.